Alright guys, TetraBit here again today, bringing you a breakdown of Day 3 of the CWL Global Pro League. Once again, a surprising one, some big results all over the board, and GenG looking really strong here up against Reciprocity. That's the first match we're going to talk about. Like if you enjoy it, subscribe if you're new as always, and let's hop right into it. So Reciprocity versus GenG was the very first match of the night, and this was a truly remarkable one. The main story here was just Tommy. You look at this scoreboard, 47 in 24. This is in the kill department as well. This is not EKIA or anything like that. This is straight from the scoreboard. And goddamn, he was going off. They win 250-243. There was a hell of a comeback from Reciprocity in this map. And they do make it work down the line. You can see they were trailing pretty much the entire game, although these colours are very similar. I'll leave a link to this spreadsheet down in the description box below, courtesy of EasyMac. So yeah, Tommy goes absolutely off, gets 3 sets of streaks, and they win by 7 points. Now, if that's not a sign of things to come in the series, then I don't know what is, because Tommy was the absolute hard carry. This may have been one of the best individual performances I saw. Great use of his specialists as well. And yeah, they end up coming out with a win with 7 points, map number 1. Game 2, unsurprisingly against GenG, was a different story. Tommy goes 12 in 7, but GenG win the search. Couple of clutch rounds here and there, and Maniac was playing well, but yeah, for all Tommy wanted to try and do, he couldn't get it done, even with that 1.7 KD on this map. Then we move into the control. Now, this was a hell of a map, and these guys, both these teams, were playing control so poorly. I was watching Parasite's stream as he was talking through it, and what the hell was going on here, lads? I don't think they captured like a single point until all the way to the final round. Defense won every single round, as you can see here on the right hand side, largely with a load of kills remaining. And the offensive teams, they just weren't waiting for each other. They would get like 2 dead, and then instead of waiting for their team to spawn up, they would try and push forward, try and trade out those kills. The reinforcements are in for the defense, and it never worked out in their favour. And of course, GenG managed to get defense on the very last round, because that's what happens when you have offense, or when you have defense on the first round, you also have defense on the last round, which is very stupid. But yeah, 5 defensive round wins, GenG take it away. And then game 4, just the biggest throw, one of the biggest throws I've ever seen. I didn't think this game was safe, even at 180 to 70 or whatever it was after this second rotation hill one, because you know what happened yesterday to them against Luminosity Gaming, which is one of the gameplays I showed, which I'll talk through in a second here against GenG once again. And they bring it back and win the game, do GenG against Reciprocity. Just horrible for the guys of Reciprocity. What an unbelievable choke. Tommy goes 40 in 22, man, again. He's double positive again in a hardpoint, and they lose 250-240. Like, there is big issues right now with Reciprocity if they can't close these kind of games out. So this is like game number 4 with GenG looking to close out the series. Reciprocity in some sort of lead here, but rotating over towards middle. There comes Shawnee barreling through the door. No support at all. Yes, Tommy does manage to take him down, and nearly takes down Morks as well, but kind of gets lucky to get away. They have the pinch on the hardpoint here with, 10 seconds left, all they need. They try and break in. Tommy once again opening things up. Maniac takes down Zed. It's just so many staggered pushes here. And that slide from Spacely really seals the deal, as that Annihilator from Whisking couldn't get anything done. 2 guys stuck in the window. Havoic's nice jump shot gives them a good advantage here, and they tie up the game all of a sudden, and yeah, it's just way too staggered here. Zed's forced to push in. He's going to die to Maniac on a lovely little flank, and yeah, that flank from Maniac really does seal the deal, and especially when Spacey pulls out the War Machine. That's going to be a good night. 249, 240, just horrible. So, the second series of the night, we had UYU versus Luminosity, and this to me was a surprising one, how comfortably UYU came away with it. Yes, Reciprocity beat LG yesterday, but I thought UYU, they did show some things against OpTic Gaming, but they didn't look exactly stellar. They still lost that series, but I am proven wrong about this squad, because Methods and Mayhem went off this series. Look at this scoreboard, map number 1. Formal and Gunless couldn't compete in the slaying with these guys. They were going off, getting streaks, getting their specialists super early. 250-147. Luminosity looking in a shambles right now. Then we have map number 2, of course. Game 2, 6-4 to LG. This was, well, the Gunless show. 16 in 4 for him towards the end. He did have a potential 1v3, could have clutched as well, but he ended up losing that, but they closed it out in the next rounds. LG, going into this series, you would have expected them to probably, take all of the respawns, and UIU would have been the team struggling to win SnDs. But it was the opposite way round. LG won the search, and then UIU won the respawns. Now, One thing to mention here is that UIU beat OpTic on gridlock control yesterday, 3-1, and then Luminosity play them on it, and they get the better of them again. Like, it actually wasn't particularly close, this map. Mayhem goes 25-12, Knight goes 21-9, like, this was big performances from them. Mayhem once again taking it over on this map. And yeah, Luminosity just couldn't compete with it. John had a tough game, as we see quite often with the SMGs. Like John and Scump both having really tough control maps. And yeah, UIU come out on top, no problem at all. Going into map number 4, this was a bit closer, but UIU still run away with it at the end of the day. Mayhem and Methods are the real business doers here on the side of UIU. And considering Methods is on the team instead of Spoof, you know, what sort of change that was, talked about that a couple of weeks ago. LG losing to Reciprocity and UIU, like, you know, what hope does that give them for the rest of the league? So this is the end of that map number 4, similar to what we saw with GenG here. Methods gets taken out by a flying Slacked, and I think a lot of people would say, like, Slacked is the guy to go right now on this team. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on what LG need to change up, because you know, this is not a result that you can really find acceptable. And when Formal and Gunless are dominating this hard, and Classics having decent maps here or there, but Slacked and John just really haven't been performing right now. And it's interesting because a lot of people would say that, you know, you need Formal and Gunless on your Maddoxes, which means you need an ICR player now. And Classic has kind of been running that ICR a little bit, but you know, some people would suggest maybe you even take out a guy like Slacked or something and you put in like an ICR. That's what I saw some people were saying, but you know, the ICR is the least important role. I think it's better to keep hold of your star players, but it's not really working out for them now, is it? Gunless misses a shot with the Tempest, and that spells disaster. So, Series 3, Midnight versus Red Reserve. This was unquestionably the series of the day. Midnight do it again, but this time they are pushed to a Game 5. Still undefeated on LAN, but they have actually lost a map in the Pro League, because previously they'd 3-0'd EG and OG, who ended up playing each other later on in the day. We'll go on to that in just a second here. So, 250-234 map number 1. Scraps was going off at 30-15, but it just wasn't enough. Brack, I probably got streaks. I cannot remember exactly, but 27-19 here, and it's just a classic really for Midnight. It's exactly what they did against EG. They go down heavy early, 0-84 after Hill 2. They bring it all the way back. They make a cheeky comeback and finally take the lead. Well, they did have a lead here, 193-181, but they finally close it out in the end on gridlock, and if there's any team you can expect to clutch up right now, it's Midnight Esports. For such a young squad, their clutch factor is remarkable. So map number 2, Red Reserve actually got the better of these guys, and considering Red got smoked by GenG on Payload Search and Destroy yesterday, I was rather impressed at how they played this one. Of course, Scraps goes 13-4, he gets streaks, but you know, their plays seem to make a lot of sense here. And maybe it was Midnight just kind of being a little bit brain dead at times, but Red Reserve winning their game 2 SnDs is usually a very big recipe for success. But game number 3, they won as well, which is pretty remarkable considering Arsenal Control was Midnight's just dominant map. As I talked about that stat yesterday with JP, like they were 24-4 and round counting control overall since the PLQ, or you know, since the start of the PLQ. And Red Reserve get the better of them here. And it's not all defense wins, 3 defense wins, 2 attacking wins. And Red Reserve played this so much better. Both these teams played it so much better than that Reciprocity GenG match of earlier. They were waiting for each other. They were biding their time, you know, making sure their teammates were there in support. So much better to watch. It really shows how Midnight are a fantastic team, but Red Reserve are right up along there with them. And Scraps and Zero had big maps, but just couldn't work out to their favour. You see, actually, if you look at the slaying here, Midnight were the ones, you know, behind, which is not what you usually see, but it worked out in the favour of Red Reserve. And Envoy had a pretty dire map here. And it's something you can kind of see with the SMGs, where the guys going in first, they have a tough time in control. And what's quite incredible about this Midnight team is that Envoy has a bad series, but yet he is still bailed out by the fantastic talent on his squad. So going into game number 4, Midnight 230-130, crushed it. Wasn't even close this map. Towards the end, I think there were streaks that came out in the favour as well. LlamaGod and Parzelion just went off. LlamaGod especially with the Tempest had a couple of highlight plays this map. And this was perfect hardpoint for Midnight. The rotations were superb. Red Reserve could never get into the game as no matter how hard they tried. Then in map number 5 was 6-4 in favour of Midnight in the end. And really just some early clutch rounds and largely off the back of Brack. Scraps had a pretty bad map 5. but Brack just went off, and I'll show you a clip from him in just a second here. Midnight closed it out in a game 5, staying undefeated on LAN. Tough for Red Reserve, but definitely played them much closer than everyone else so far. So this is the round number 1 of the map 5 Search and Destroy. First blood goes the way of Red Reserve, and they're trying to play this retake onto the A bomb site here. And with the first blood in hand, this should be okay. Llama's getting tagged up through the wall, manages to get away with his life, and Red Reserve like playing this retake all from one side here. So Scraps is going through mid, he gets a little spot of Envoy up top, calls that out to his team, and now it's time for the guys to challenge. So Scraps tries to come in through mid, the pinch is in effect, but Envoy plays a lovely flank through mid. I guess that call out from Scraps didn't come fully to fruition, they didn't expect exactly what he was going to do. But look at this 1 versus 2 now from Brack. He already got 2 kills in the round. Vance is trying to hold him off, but Brack manages to slide out and take this one down. And yeah, Zero just hopped on the bomb, gets taken out as well. And what a round from Brack. So that was unquestionably, I think, the series of the day, and then we move on to a very boring one indeed, because OpTic just smoked EG. And I don't know what to think about EG right now, because, okay, OpTic were looking really good this series. Of course, they do still have Zuma as a substitute instead of Dashi. You know, by the time they've had a couple of days to practice with him now, they've got a few scrims in, they're looking a lot better with him. They seem to have got their roles sorted out. Scump was using the Maddox quite a lot, and yeah, Zuma and TJ was often using the sub. Zuma was on a Maddox or a sub, depending how the situation desired it, and it seemed to work out a lot better for OpTic Gaming here. They pretty much crushed EG in this series. It was very similar to what we saw in the series against Midnight, I think, when they lost a similar margin game 1, got smoked in map 2. So they lose map 1, 250 to 212 here, even with Felony dropping 33 and Exotic dropping 31. It wasn't enough. Karma was just the overlord this series for OpTic. I think him and Tommy, maybe it was just Tommy, but I think maybe Karma as well tweeted a couple of days ago. Both of them said something like, you know, I wish I had performed a bit better that series, wasn't up to standard. And then both of them just come out swinging it today. And yeah, OpTic once again had a pretty big lead. EG tried to come back, but OG closed it out at the death. You know, how many times have we seen that before? OpTic Gaming 6-1 the Arsenal Search and Destroy. And this was super impressive. Faccento and GenG had, you know, horrible maps. Crim6 just took over. Karma played very well as well. And it's pretty crazy how much they dominated this, because you would expect that with a fill-in, it would be harder to do very well in Search and Destroy. You know, how much are they going to let Zuma on to any strategies they had prepared with Dashi? You know, who knows? But Zuma right now playing really well. The late rotations from OpTic were really cool on their offensive rounds. They'd have rounds where they get a pick, they play some information, and then with 20 seconds left, they rotate the bomb to the other side of the map and completely bamboozle the side of Evil Geniuses. 2-0 up, no problem. You don't want to play OpTic on Arsenal Search and Destroy right now. And then on the control, this was a gridlock control. I'll show you a clip from it in just a second. Once again, the defense won every single round here. And EG, their second defense, which is the round I'll show in a second, was, you know, a little bit close for comfort. But look at the kill differentials here on the right-hand side. The fact that OpTic, because they got defense first, a guaranteed defense last, is honestly pretty ridiculous. But Karma did a good job saving his streaks in this second last round, you know, for the very last round, and it helps them to close out the series no problem at all. Once again, Karma has a good map. Zodic is just the hard carry right now, and this is the problem when you have GenG and Faccento on your team. Like, your slaying is just not going to be there to compete with the best. So let's look at some gameplay. So this is to close things out in the control. Bit of a longer clip here, but OpTic are trying to break into this hard point. They have 9 kills to Evil Genius's 9, well now. And it looks like they're going to come super close to capping this, especially with Karma picking up this kill, Faccento being forced to back down. If they just cap this point, they win the game. But it looked a little bit slow, it gets contested, Karma calls in a streak, and somehow the Evil Genius's boys stay alive. Even with Royalty dying there, GenG does really well wallbanging through that. And yeah, pretty much saves them. Goon picks up a 3-piece. Now it's 5-3 in favour of Evil Geniuses, and they managed to defend this point and get it back to that second tick. So OpTic Gaming have some interesting questions on their hands here, because Karma has a drone squad and a Hellstorm. Now, I would like it if it was a good play to call them in here. But the problem is that defense is so heavy favoured that it makes a lot of sense just to save it and then use it in the final round. So Scump gets taken down by Exotic. Karma and TJ Halley last alive here. TJ still has some of his 200 health on him, which means he can hopefully win a couple of gunfights, and Karma's trying to allow him to do that. Obviously, these streaks on Karma, you don't want to use them here because it's much better to save them for defense. But Karma goes into a 1 versus 4 now, and he honestly nearly makes this work. He takes down Goon, Exotic flies at him absolutely brain dead, and then you've got a 1 versus 2 between Felony and Royalty. and of course Karma. And I like this play Karma makes. He waits around and makes Royalty a little bit scared here that they may be coming from the other side, because of course he can only come down the street through this crates building as he does, or all the way around the side. So Karma has Tac Master, so he manages to survive that. No one pushes him this time, and Felony eventually takes him down. So to finish off the video, let's have a look at some damage stats for the day. Mayhem holding it down after 6 respawn maps so far in the Pro League, of course. Mayhem has a 1.73 KD, pretty crazy. These are the stats if you'd like to pause them, and then let's go on to the schedule for tonight. Midnight versus UYU, OpTic Reciprocity, Red Reserve Luminosity, GenG versus EG. And on current form, these should be relatively easy to call. I think OpTic versus Reciprocity has potential to be close, but I'm definitely favouring OpTic, favouring Red in this one, favouring GenG in this one. This series, Midnight and UYU, could honestly be very interesting, I think. UYU have showed a lot of great things, and Midnight have had some vulnerabilities, I think, especially in their hard points. They tend to clutch up when it matters, though. But one thing about UYU is I think that they really need Mayhem and Methods to be going off to have a chance of winning. Whereas Midnight, yesterday, Envoy was not playing his best series, and they still came out on top because he got bailed out by his teammates. So anyway, like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.